Some say family is everything. But what happens when the people who should support you become the ones who betray you? In the high-stakes world of innovation, sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most dangerous cards. I sat in the back of my sister's presentation, watching her confidently explain my invention to a room full of investors. Not a single person knew she had stolen everything: the designs, the prototype, even the pitch deck I'd spent months perfecting. My name is Sarah Anderson, and I'd spent the last 3 years developing a revolutionary water purification system that could clean contaminated water using 90% less energy than current methods. My sister Victoria was about to become a billionaire from my work. It had all started 6 months ago, when I made the mistake of trusting my family. I'd always been the quiet one, the engineer who preferred her workshop to cocktail parties. Victoria was the opposite: MBA from Stanford, perfect hair, and the kind of smile that could charm venture capitalists out of their millions. "Sarah, you've been holed up in that lab forever," my mother said during one of our weekly family dinners. "At least tell us what you're working on." I hesitated. The project was nearly ready for patent filing, and I'd been bursting to share my breakthrough. Looking back, I should have kept quiet. "It's a new method of water purification," I explained, pulling out my tablet to show them the designs. "It uses a combination of electromagnetic fields and specialized filtration membranes to remove contaminants at the molecular level." Victoria leaned forward, suddenly interested. "How efficient is it?" 90% more energy efficient than current systems, and it can be scaled from household units to industrial applications. My father, who ran a successful manufacturing company, studied the diagrams with growing excitement. "This could be huge. Have you filed the patents yet?" "I'm finalizing the paperwork next week," I said, just running the last validation tests. Victoria's eyes had that calculating look I should have recognized. "You know, Sarah, this is exactly the kind of project my consulting firm specializes in. Why don't you let me look over your business plan?" I agreed, eager for her input. That weekend, I shared everything with her: the technical specifications, market research, cost projections, even my handwritten notes from the early development stages. "This is brilliant," she said, scrolling through my files, "but you'll need help bringing it to market. Let me make some calls." A week later, she invited me to dinner at her penthouse apartment. The view of the city skyline was spectacular, but something felt off about her enthusiasm. "I've been thinking about your invention," she said, pouring expensive wine. "You know what your problem is? You're too focused on the technical details. You need someone who understands the business side." "That's why I showed you everything," I replied. "I was hoping for your advice." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What if I told you I could guarantee this technology reaches its full potential? That I could make it a billion-dollar enterprise? That would be amazing," I said cautiously. "There's just one condition," she continued. "The market needs a face they can trust. Someone with business credentials, connections, proven success." I felt my stomach drop. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this would work better if I took the lead. You can stay in the lab, do the technical work, but I'll be the one presenting to investors, handling the business side." "Victoria, this is my invention. I've spent years in a basement lab." She cut me off. "Be realistic, Sarah. Who's going to invest millions based on presentations from an awkward engineer?" "You need me." I stood up, my wine glass shaking. "No, absolutely not. I'm filing the patents under my name." Her smile turned cold. "Are you sure about that?" 2 days later, my laptop disappeared from my lab. The external hard drive containing my backup files vanished from my apartment. Even my cloud storage had been wiped clean. Someone had used my emergency password, which I'd only ever shared with family. I was gathering what remained of my documentation when my mother called. "Family dinner tonight," she said firmly. "Your father has an exciting announcement." I walked into our parents' dining room that evening to find the table set for a celebration. Victoria sat in my usual place, wearing a designer suit and a triumphant smile. "Everyone," my father announced, beaming with pride, "your sister has done something extraordinary." He gestured toward Victoria. "Victoria, tell them your news." She stood, holding up a glass of champagne. "I'm pleased to announce that Anderson Global Solutions has developed a groundbreaking water purification technology. We're filing patents this week and have already lined up meetings with major investors." The room erupted in congratulations. My mother wiped away tears of joy. My younger brother Kevin whistled in admiration. "Initial projections value the technology at over $1 billion. Victoria continued. "Dad has already agreed to handle manufacturing through his company." I sat there, frozen in disbelief, as my sister claimed credit for years of my work. When I tried to speak, my father cut me off. "Now, Sarah, he said quietly, don't make a scene. Victoria has the business expertise to make this successful. You should be grateful she's willing to take it on. Grateful? I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. She stole my invention. Victoria's face hardened. I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you have any proof this was your work? That was the moment I realized how thoroughly she'd planned this. She'd taken everything, my files, my prototypes, my notes, without documentation. It would be my word against hers. Face it, little sister, she said smoothly, you're not cut out for the business world. Let me handle this. I walked out of that dinner feeling hollow. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd dreamed of achieving, had been stolen by my own sister. But what Victoria didn't know was that I hadn't been completely naive. Years of working in competitive research labs had taught me to be careful, and I had one final backup, one she couldn't possibly know about. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Dr. James Chen, my old professor from MIT who had mentored me through the early stages of the project. They did what? His voice crackled with anger when I explained the situation. I need your help, Dr. Chen. Remember those progress reports I sent you? The encrypted ones? Of course. I have them all archived with timestamps. My second call was to Patricia Martinez, a patent attorney known for handling high-profile intellectual property disputes. Her reputation for being ruthless was exactly what I needed. Miss Anderson, she said after hearing my story, do you have any idea how valuable this technology is? Victoria seems to think it's worth $1 billion. More. Much more. And if what you're telling me is true, your sister just committed intellectual property theft on a massive scale. I took a deep breath. I can prove it was my invention. I just need time. Time, Patricia said thoughtfully, and a certain amount of theatrical timing. Tell me, when is your sister filing the patent application? Next week. She's making a big show of it. Invited journalists, investors, even local politicians to watch her submit the paperwork. Patricia's laugh was cold. Perfect. Because I've got something better than a patent application. I've got a surprise that will make your sister wish she'd never heard of intellectual property law. As I hung up the phone, I looked at the small USB drive in my hand, the one Victoria didn't know about. The one I'd kept in a safety deposit box since the beginning. It contained everything, dated design files, video logs of my testing process, and most importantly, proof that I'd already filed a provisional patent application months ago. Victoria thought she had stolen my future. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I sat down at my computer and began typing an email to every person on Victoria's invitation list for the patent filing ceremony. They were about to witness something all right, just not what my sister had planned. The real show was about to begin. The day of Victoria's patent filing ceremony arrived with all the fanfare she'd planned. The atrium of the patent office had been transformed into a makeshift press conference space, complete with a podium bearing the Anderson Global Solutions logo. I stood at the back of the room, watching investors and journalists file in. Victoria worked the crowd like a professional, shaking hands and flashing her practiced smile. Our parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Ready? Patricia Martinez appeared beside me, carrying a sleek briefcase. I nodded, gripping my own laptop bag tightly. Inside was the USB drive containing 3 years of my life's work. Remember, Patricia said quietly, timing is everything. Let her start her presentation before we make our move. Victoria stepped up to the podium, looking flawless in an expensive suit. Thank you all for coming today, she began. We're here to witness a historic moment in environmental technology. I tuned out her speech, having heard every line during our family dinner. Instead, I watched the faces in the crowd. Investors leaned forward, already calculating their potential returns. Journalists scribbled notes about the brilliant businesswoman revolutionizing water purification. The applications of this technology are limitless, Victoria continued. From developing nations to industrial use, our system will transform how the world handles water contamination. Our father nodded approvingly. Our mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. And now, Victoria gestured to her assistant, who approached with a tablet. I'll demonstrate the patent filing process. Excuse me, Patricia's voice cut through the room like a knife. Before you proceed, I have something relevant to share. Victoria's smile flickered. I'm sorry, this is a private event. Patricia Martinez, intellectual property attorney, she introduced herself, striding to the front. And I'm here representing the true inventor of this technology. The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. I invented this system, did you? Patricia connected my laptop to the room's projection system. Then perhaps you can explain these. The screen filled with my original design documents, complete with timestamps and metadata. Video clips played showing me working in my lab, testing prototypes, recording results. Or this, Patricia continued, displaying my provisional patent application filed 3 months earlier. Notice the date. And the name. Sarah Anderson. Victoria's composure cracked. These are clearly falsified. I can verify their authenticity, a new voice called out. Dr. Chen stood up from his seat in the middle row. As Ms. Anderson's former professor and mentor, I received regular encrypted progress reports throughout the development process. I maintain copies of all correspondence, which I've already provided to the patent office. The journalists who'd come to cover a simple patent filing were now furiously taking notes about a much bigger story. Investors began quietly edging toward the exits. Sarah, our father, started to stand. What are you doing? Reclaiming what's mine, I said, finally walking to the front. Victoria didn't invent anything. She stole my work after I trusted her with it. That's ridiculous, Victoria snapped, but her voice shook. Where's your proof? I pulled out the USB drive. Right here. Every file, every test result, every piece of documentation you thought you'd erased. Plus something else you didn't know about. I nodded to Patricia, who displayed one final document. This is Ms. Anderson's full patent application, submitted electronically last night. The patent office has already begun processing it. Victoria lunged for the podium. You can't do this. I have investors. Contracts. Fraudulent contracts, Patricia cut in smoothly, based on stolen intellectual property. Would your investors like to hear about the potential legal ramifications? The remaining investors quickly joined those already leaving. Victoria's assistant quietly gathered her things and slipped away. Mom, Dad, Victoria turned to our parents. You know this technology is better in my hands. Sarah doesn't have the business acumen. What I have, I interrupted, is a partnership agreement with Aquatech International. They're very interested in my invention and my continued role as lead engineer in its development. That was the final blow. Victoria knew Aquatech. They were the industry leaders she'd been trying to court for weeks. You're bluffing, she whispered. The doors opened and James Wong, Aquatech's CEO, walked in. Actually, she's not. We'd been watching Miss Anderson's work for months. When she approached us last week with proof of her invention and evidence of its theft, we were very interested indeed. Victoria's face went pale. Our father slumped in his chair. Our mother was crying again, but not from pride this time. The contracts will be signed this afternoon, James continued. Sarah will head our new research division, overseeing the implementation of her technology globally. I turned to my sister. You thought I was just a quiet engineer who couldn't handle the business world. You never bothered to ask what I was actually planning. Sarah, our father stood up. Surely we can work something out. Keep this in the family. The family that supported Victoria stealing my work? I shook my head. No, this is business now, and Victoria should understand that better than anyone. Patricia stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, your daughter Victoria is facing serious legal consequences for intellectual property theft. I suggest you all leave now before the press asks too many uncomfortable questions. They left quickly. Victoria's perfect composure finally shattered. The journalists, however, stayed. They had a much better story than they'd expected. 1 year later, I stood on a stage in Kenya, watching as the first large-scale implementation of my water purification system came online. Villages that had struggled with contaminated water for generations now had access to clean, safe drinking water. Victoria had avoided criminal charges by signing a comprehensive admission of theft and agreeing never to work in environmental technology. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, away from the scandal. Our parents tried to apologize, claiming they'd had no idea how far Victoria would go. I maintain a polite but distant relationship with them, focused mainly on holiday cards and occasional phone calls. The real celebration happened in my lab at Aquatech Research Center. Dr. Chen was there. Along with my team of engineers, we toasted with champagne from paper cups, surrounded by prototypes and testing equipment. Your sister never understood, Dr. Chen said quietly, that true innovation isn't about who can pitch the best story, it's about who's willing to do the work. He was right. Victoria had seen only the potential profits, not the years of research, the failed attempts, the endless refinements that went into creating something revolutionary. Last week, I received an envelope from the patent office, my second patent, for an improved version of the system. As I hung it on my office wall next to the first one, I thought about how differently things might have gone if I hadn't kept that backup, if I hadn't been prepared for betrayal. But then I realized something. Victoria's theft, painful as it was, had forced me to fight for my invention in a way I might not have otherwise. Instead of letting my sister handle the business side, I'd learned to navigate that world myself. Instead of staying quietly in my lab, I found my voice. The quiet engineer had learned to roar. My invention now provides clean water to millions of people worldwide. Victoria's name appears only in old news articles about the attempted theft, a cautionary tale about corporate espionage and family betrayal. Sometimes karma works perfectly on its own, sometimes it just needs a little help from a prepared mind, a hidden USB drive, and the determination to stand up for what's right. As for me, I still prefer my lab to boardrooms, but I've learned to move comfortably in both worlds. My team knows me as both a brilliant engineer and a fierce protector of our innovations. And that USB drive? I had it framed. It sits on my desk as a reminder that the quietest person in the room might just be the most dangerous, especially when they're protecting something they've built with their own hands and mind. The next generation of my water purification system is already in development. This time, I didn't tell my family anything about it.